Twisted Sister with SMF. And in case you haven't heard, Dee Snider and Paul Stanley have had a little bit of scrum in the news lately. That's neither here nor there. WLNJ wants to remind you that it's Friday, it's 5 o'clock, and it's Miller time. Coming up next is the Loki and Jabroni Show. Their special guest is going to be Bill Starkey, the founder of the Kiss Army. I'm Dr. Rock. I'm about to pop my first beer, and I'm out of here. Right now, Sinners, Inc.
In case you guys didn't realize, we just hit it big time. We got our own radio station and everything.
Yes, sir. I like those call letters, too. WLNJ.
I think I'm going to get my eyebrows waxed next week. We're hitting it big time.
Oh, wait. So I'm going to, when we go into what's on our minds, I want to tell you about this idea. I ran it by another guy we know, and I don't know if he liked it or not, but he did the same research I did. Either way. Welcome us in, dude.
Absolutely, man. That was fucking awesome. I loved it.
Thank you. It's been 15 years since I've been in radio. Felt good.
So how's everybody doing out there? We are actually, once again, recording a small segment of this. As you know, we did a two-part interview with Mr. Bill Starkey. It was about, I would say, almost 55 minutes into the interview, and Jabroni looked across the table and said, I think we could probably get another one out of him, man. And I said, another what? Another interview? He's like, yeah, I think we could probably go for about another hour at least. I'm still looking at plenty of questions that I got to ask.
Yeah.
And I didn't even ask what I think I asked like one at that point. I mean, he was going
over.
No, he did.
Rightfully so.
And it was funny because you know, we had Focus in the building, and he was looking at me. He's like, not a Kiss Army fan? I'm looking at him and I'm like, dude, are you listening to him? He's letting you know, man. He is telling you.
And you guys are about to hear everything.
He's giving you the backstory. Like
he really did. Well, guys, welcome once again to the Loki and Jabroni Show. My name is Jabroni.
As always, I am Loki.
And we want to thank you for downloading this week's episode. And we especially thank you if you have subscribed to our show. By subscribing to our show, each and every episode is automatically sent to whatever device you use to listen to us on. No fuss, no muss, no headaches, no hassles, no horse shit. Also, as always, log on to iTunes, search for our show, and please leave that review. It helps us move up the charts, and it allows us to bring you more quality entertainment to creep into your ear and violate your brain each and every week. Also, like the Facebook page for the latest updates, video blogs, information, goofy pictures that Loki likes to make, or anything else that crosses our ignorant minds.
Which I've been doing a lot of that
Yes,
lately.
you have. What is on your mind before we get into this fantastic interview?
Man, let me see. I actually, I went to get my rest of my tattoo colored in the other day.
I get to see it. That's
and I saw Bess Eaton. Right?
The woman or the donut place?
Yeah, the donut place.
No shit.
Now I haven't seen. Now we're in the fine state of Connecticut, and I got to tell you,
it's been easily 15, 20 years.
Easy, right? Since you've had the pleasure of having an iced coffee with those little marbly ice cubes. You know what I'm saying? That's what really made the iced coffee.
Didn't they invent the iced coffee?
I think they did. I told people that before, and I could be completely wrong, but
if I'm not mistaken, and
I think they were. And
I'm going to go back to my radio days. I would go in at midnight, and down on Hamburger Hill in Groton, there it was, bright shining light on the corner.
Yep,
Bess
right
Eaton.
across from frickin'
Blockbuster Video,
and Ground Round,
A&P, or Wall Bombs, or whatever.
All A&P back in the day. Yeah,
and I would. This is back in the day when I drank a lot of coffee. I was running myself ragged in those days, and I would that was the first place I ever saw iced coffee. Yeah. And I tried one. It wasn't my cup of it wasn't my cup of tea. It wasn't my thing. but at the same time, it was interesting.
But it was like I said, what really got it for me was the
round
ice, yeah,
yes.
dude. And you could sit there and chomp on it, and you'd have a little bit of that coffee flavor.
It
left
reminds
over.
me now that you mention it, and I do remember it. It's like it was like Ice Cube Dippin' Dots, if you will.
Yes.
Am I far off?
No, that's pretty. That's a good analogy right there. I like that.
If the Best Eating Company did not invent iced coffee, I'd be very surprised.
I think you might be right though, because I've even brought that up to people before, and they're like, no, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure, dude. I don't remember ever having an iced coffee before I had a Best.
That's
iced
you know
coffee.
what? I think you're right.
So that was kind of like
that's weird.
A random, strange. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like I haven't seen one of these seriously in decades. Like
wow.
you said, in decades, and there it was, right across from the tattoo parlor.
Nice,
right there.
That's fantastic.
I was like, okay. I guess it's got to be a Rhode Island thing, you know?
Maybe
because
it is.
I think they said that they had like about three or four that they knew in the area. So maybe it's just
it was Best Eaten was the Dunkin' Donuts of his day.
Oh my God,
we had a Best Eaten every 5 miles
everywhere,
around here.
Man.
Now there's a Dunkin'
crazy.
on every fucking corner.
Yeah, now we can't get rid of Dunkins.
Oh, real quick before I go into my point, I went back to that same Dunkin' Donuts we talked about a couple weeks ago. Where the guy asked me if they wanted the iced tea hot. Walked in again. Same jackass. Same
Still has
order.
his job, huh?
Same question.
Oh my God.
And at this point, I blew up at him. I'm like, let me ask you this. I was here 3 weeks ago. I ordered the iced tea. You asked me if I wanted it hot. Now you're asking me again. Who ties your fucking shoes in the morning, kid?
Hopefully he said...
He got mad. He went and got the manager. Manager comes over and says, can I help you, sir? And I explained the story. And the manager just kind of did one of those head in the hand, rubbing the temples, looked up at me and said, sir, I'm sorry. I'd like to give you order for free. I said, no, I've already paid for it. I don't mind paying for it. Just understand what kind of ignorant high school dropout, switched off idiots you have running your register.
Yes.
Because if I ask for a jelly donut, the last question I want is, do you want jelly in that? Well, shit.
Or taking your credit card and being like, thank you, Mr.
Bernez.
Mr. B.
Yeah, right. That's how I know not to talk to people on the phone. You can't pronounce my name. I'm not answering the fucking phone.
Exactly right.
I've already answered. I'm just not speaking to you. I tell him I'm dead. Anyway, there's a gentleman at work named Kevin Wallace, and I spoke of him way back.
Yeah,
he wanted to be the director of internet security for the Loki and Jabroni show, and every day he comes up with a cockamamie idea. He calls it his $1 million idea. So.
Well, he's still working with you, so obviously he hasn't gotten $1 million idea to work
some
yet.
of them are good, and some of them are not. The problem is this kid. I think he's 25, so he's not really a kid. He sits in front of the tube all night and watches Shark Tank and thinks, I can do that.
Yeah.
As we all do.
Well, of course you can, but the idea's already been shown.
But look, we all watch Wipeout. We all watch American Ninja Warrior or all these shows. Like, I can do that.
Not American Ninja Warrior. Dude, not to cut you off, but they actually
finally
got a fucking winner, dude.
Yes, I watched that
shit.
video. And he did it like it was a walk in the park. Fantastic for him.
Could you honestly?
Could I? No, absolutely not. I proved that at Nomad's Adventure Quest up north near Hartford when I did the mini Wipeout.
Yeah, the
thing.
mini Wipeout
It
challenge.
Kicked my ass.
Yes.
Anyhow,
Yep.
I went and picked up the Immortal Beloved from her flight. She's back from Haiti. Another incredible trip for them. They exceeded their numbers, so props to you, Angela. And I had an idea. And I'm going to ask you, just like I asked Kevin, and I'll bring the other guy into the story in a minute. What is the least manly thing you can do to improve your appearance? Let's take a couple things out. Let's take your clothes out. Let's take makeup out. Anything surgical. What is the least manly thing you can do to improve your appearance?
The least to improve it or
to
make
improve
you...
it. To improve it.
And the least manly.
The least manly thing you can think of.
Clean your fingernails.
You've hit it. Manicure and pedicure, right? What man is actually going to say? And you know where this came from? Again, I'm at the hotel. We rented a hotel room. I go pick Angela up. It's butt ass dark 30 in the morning when she comes in. I watched Coming to America, and the Arsenio Hall character says, "I'm badly in need of a manicure."
Yeah.
Boom! There's my $1 million idea, mine. And I said, what we need is a manly manicure pedicure place. And I have a name in my head, and I brought it to a friend of the show, a friend of ours, Jason Lyon. Jason likes to come over and listen to Kevin babble.
Yeah.
And then comes over to my x-ray booth and goes, is that kid crazy?
Yeah.
That's the most ignorant idea I've ever heard. And I say, Jason, I cannot comment on Kevin. So Kevin's not at work the other day. Thank God. When I come up with this idea, and here comes Jason, our daily laugh fest. And I say, Jason, I got it. This is my $1 million idea. I already came up with the name. The Macho Mani-Pedi. Macho Mani-Pedi.
Yeah.
And if Randy Savage were still alive, I'd want him to do the ads. Now, there is a place, I did my research, and Jason obviously did his because he'd seen this and heard about it before. He said, well, there's a place in New Orleans, is a sports bar with that kind of thing for guys on the side. And I said, I know that. I researched it, but it's an offshoot of this sports bar. I'm thinking of one place.
Mm-hmm.
Make it manly. Get like 30 Hooter girls or Playboy bunnies or whatever kind of hotness you want.
You know they're going to have to be Chinese.
Maybe get some
the only ones
American
that know
girls
how to do fucking nails, man.
Well, there's girls who went to cosmetology school here in the States that could probably, but you're right. The proliferation. Look, Loki said that, not me. I'm throwing that out there.
You're damn
now.
right I said that. Because it doesn't matter where you go into, man. I swear.
I just get 30 hot women. A wall of televisions, like our friend Mark Gazzardu has in his man cave in his basement. Sports or mob movies or whatever the case. And have, I wouldn't say a bar, but a small selection. You want to sit down while you're having your mani-pedi, you're feeling a little bad about yourself, have a Crown Royal. Feeling a little bad about yourself, have a Jim Beam. Not your macho again, right? You got the sports page in front of you. You can have anything, and it's just one of those places where men can feel like men and get there, like you said, it's very unmanly. Men cut their fucking nails with bolt cutters half the time. I bite
him and spit him at people.
Oh, I'll spit him anywhere. I relish in the.
I'm just letting you know. So if you happen to walk by me and you feel something flick in your face, I'm sorry. That's probably one of my fingernails.
It's Mike doing his thing.
That's my fingernail.
Now, and we laughed about it, but it's funny that I did that research because I didn't want to come in and sound like Kevin. And props to you, Kevin. You come up with some ideas, but some of them are good. Most of them are crazy. I didn't want to come in with this idea and not have the research done, so
dude,
I looked
come on.
it up.
I mean, you need some of the crazy ideas, though. For example,
go ahead.
Corn dog.
Mm-hmm.
Who in their right mind said, you know what would be awesome? If I take this here hot dog and surround it in some delicious corn fritter goodness.
Judging by the voice you used, I would guess it's someone south of the Mason-Dixon line.
And so.
Nothing that's wrong with that. I'm from south of the Mason-Dixon line. I accept my heritage. However, we're not the brightest people on earth, folks.
And you probably use lots of Tabasco with that.
No, I enjoy my corn dog with mustard. Oh, good God! So, and I wanted to be humorous, and I thought that was a really great thing.
No, that is.
And
I like that.
Next week, I'm letting you guys know it's on. Next week, I have From the Mind of Jabroni after we bring you part 2 of Bill Starkey. Yeah. Very wonderful week for me this week. I want to put that out there next week, but I don't want to take away from Bill too much. But you said it in the beginning. I was going to ask you, but you kind of you jumped right into it. We learned a lot in both parts.
Oh yeah. Well, in the second part, you guys, like I said, you'll hear. Obviously, in the first part, there's a lot of background, and it'll work for people that really don't know his background or know what he's about or where he even came from. Even like he said in the interview, he's got students. Mm-hmm. That still don't even know who he is.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I'm
I mean, you don't, unless you're in this world, unless you're in the KISS Army or just that KISS Nation, if you will, you don't know Bill Starkey from a hole in the ground.
No, exactly. And I think that goes with a lot of, like, say, fan clubs. You know what I'm saying? You don't really, I mean, you know who obviously the fan club's about, but do you really look down and see who the president is, or do you see who the head honcho is?
Their name is at the bottom of your little certificate. That
exactly,
you get, but do you remember
exactly, and when you like do something special or something, and they send you an award, it'll be down there. But do you look at it?
Well,
you know
I go back to Mark Slaughter on this, and when they did a self-run fan club.
Yeah.
So if you got a certificate that said Slaughter Fan Club, you got the 4 names at the bottom. You might think, oh, that's hand stamped and it's run by somebody else. We learned that day.
Mm-hmm.
Slaughter, Mark Slaughter, Danish Drum, Tim Kelly, God rest his soul, and Blas Elias ran their own fan club.
Right.
Which I thought was fantastic. But here's a guy from Middle America, folks, that just decided to start something. It caught wind to the KISS people. The KISS people found him. He didn't find them. They found him.
Yeah.
And he ran with it. It was just amazing. So
it definitely was. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna lead right into this part of the interview, obviously, you'll hear Jabroni setting it up and getting the first part of the conversation going. This first part, like I said, is approximately 58 minutes long. We're gonna wrap the show around that. Obviously, we're gonna be cutting out here in about like 20 seconds, leading right into that interview, and then we're gonna follow out for the last 15 minutes of our show, doing our normal 15 minutes like we always do. And then the next week we'll be doing the exact same thing, coming back, giving you about 15 minutes of the opening, like Jabroni said, a little bit of From the Mind of Jabroni.
God, I like the way you did that. We need Ed to produce a spot for both of us. It's Loki's Last Laugh, or From the Mind, with some ethereal music behind it.
Exactly, I do some ethereal. So we are gonna throw right out and let you guys learn a little bit about the Kiss Army General.
You wanted the best, you got the best. Gentlemen, I am proud to introduce the founder, the general, the field marshal, if you will, of the Kiss Army, and the person that made me a card-carrying member of the Kiss Army, Mr. Bill Starkey. Bill, how are we doing today?
Yeah.
I am doing fantastic.
I am
pleasure to be on the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here. I am thrilled to have you here as a card-carrying member, if that's possible 40-some years later, of the Kiss Army. If I can't have the band, I want the man who made it possible.
He did say that when we first started this podcast. He said, if I can't get Kiss, I am going to get the general of the Kiss Army. So I know he's excited about this.
He didn't even tell me his name when I first met him. That's what he said.
I was like, this is my name. Just get out. So let's go back to the very, very, very beginnings. You were originally from Terre Haute, Indiana, correct?
Right.
So how did Kiss permeate your existence?
Well, they permeated my existence. Actually, I think the first time I was sitting down at the table and I was eating breakfast, and there was a picture of Gene in our TV news guide saying that the band Kiss would be performing on, I believe it was Don Kirshner's In Concert. And the picture just of Gene alone was enough to get one's attention. And I noticed it, and I didn't. I mean, that was it was enough to get me to stop and take notice. And then, of course, I finished my cereal and went on to school. And I always watched Don Kirshner because it was the only time to see any kind of rock concerts live. And I remember tuning in that night just to see Foghat. And Kiss came on. And needless to say, I completely forgot about Foghat. And I just couldn't get over what I saw, and I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. Well, and I have my typical rock bands that I liked, the Alice Cooper, and I was also into a lot of the glitter bands, the Bowie and Slade and Mott the Hoople, and that kind of those English bands fascinated me. I thought Kiss was so cool that I thought, well, are these guys really underground, or what? How come I haven't heard of these guys? And I was lucky because my father was an expediter, which means he shipped records for Columbia Records in Terre Haute, which at that time produced the most records in the country.
Wow.
And CBS Records was one of their main plants was there, and I think there was one in New Jersey and one on the West Coast. But most of the production was done in the Midwest because it was easier to ship things out of the Midwest. It was a central location. And my dad was always up into popular rock because it was his job to do that kind of stuff. But it didn't impress him as far as music goes because he was more into like Sinatra, Mario Lanza, all these these guys with great voices and all this easy listening music and all that. And he knew that I was interested in the band, and it just so happened he handled the Warner Brothers account, and they shipped Kiss at that time because Casablanca Records was new, and he was able to get me the first album, which included the original poster, which I still have to this day, which is worn like a kid's bad baby blanket.
Wait. You still have the original poster that came in the initial pressing?
Yeah.
That's
mm-hmm.
fantastic.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really, like I said, it's really worn, guys. I mean, it came, I've got the record and all that, and it's folded and all that. To this day, I think it's one of the greatest.
Battle Scars, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the greatest Kiss posters ever. I mean, they could reproduce it and still sell a mess of them, I think. And I'd gotten the first album, and then lately after that, a little bit of time after that, my co-partner, as a matter of fact, he was the field marshal. I was commander-in-chief.
Oh, okay.
I
apologize for that intro.
Well, only just to Jay. Oh, you went to Jay. I mean, he is the field marshal. He's my he helped call the shots there.
Okay.
And Jay had also gotten the first Kiss album. Well, we liked it a lot, and we knew we thought they sounded pretty good. It was all about the music to us. Of course, the image was great. And then Hotter Than Hell came out, and my dad had always kept daring. He said, would you like to go to a rock concert one time? Because I'd never been to a lot of rock concerts, any rock concerts. I mean, let's face it. I mean, in Terre Haute, not a lot of people came through there at that time. And Dad would occasionally get comp tickets. And he asked me if I wanted to go see, at that time, Deep Purple at Market Square Arena. And I thought, well, yeah, that'd be a nice first concert. Of course, my dad, he would assume all responsibility of taking me there, making sure that I got back safe and sound and everything, because that's what my parents were. Well, it just so happened the concerts for Deep Purple fell through, and I think the show may have sold out or something. And again, it was a Warner Brothers thing, and he knew I liked Kiss, and he said, well, would you like to go see Kiss instead? And I said, oh, yeah, I mean, I'll go anywhere, So here it is. It's a Sunday night, December the 8th. And
that's my
really
birthday, sir. Holy crap.
December the 8th on a Sunday night.
That's awesome.
It was also odd. It was the day in the NFL, I think that O.J. broke the NFL rushing record or something, which is kind of weird.
So good things
do
happen on my birthday.
So here's my dad and my little brother and me. We go in this beat-up pickup truck, and we drive all the way to Evansville to see Kiss. And, of course, the tickets don't arrive at the will call thing, and my dad gets frustrated, and he drives around Evansville looking for Kiss albums in hopes that he can call a phone number from Casablanca and maybe explain the situation, knowing that unknown to him that you're not going to be able to find any Kiss albums in Evansville, Indiana at that time because the band was just that unknown. And so Dad came back to the will call window, and of course the concert had already still been going on, and the lady I think felt sorry for us and just let us in. And we sat there, and the place was incredible. It was packed, and at that time there was 3 bands, and it was Kiss sharing the bill with ZZ Top. I think they traded off sharing headline status from city to city, and it just so happened for this night, ZZ Top was listed on the marquee first, and there was an opening band, and then Kiss, and then ZZ Top. Well, of course, when we got there, the first band was just about ending their set, and Kiss came out, and they just blew me away. Well, I mean, they blew my dad away as well. I mean, it was just amazing. The song sounded so much different live than they did on the studio albums. At that time, there were only 2 albums. And there was strange stuff, like the Kiss logo was off to one side and it was on the stage, and that Kiss didn't have a whole lot of stage area to perform on. But it's kind of hard to explain if you'd never seen the band live before. You had no idea what was going to happen.
Right.
I mean, the visuals, the fire breathing, the sirens. I mean, it was very high energy. And after the band was done, ZZ Top came out and maybe played 1 or 2 songs, and my dad turned to me and he said, "Had you seen enough?" And I said, "Well, yeah." I mean, it was just really, once you saw Kiss in December of '74, and then the next band, it just wasn't the same. And ZZ Top's a great band, don't get me wrong and all that, but live and all that, it just didn't do it. So here I am with this long 2-hour drive back to Evansville. The trek from Evansville to Terre Haute is horrible anyway.
I've lived in Indiana. I know exactly what you're talking about. That is a long drive.
And it's a late Sunday night, and you got to go to school the next morning. You're thinking, how in the hell am I going to tell these kids what I saw? So, being the typical nerd, geek kind of guy I was, I get ready to get on the bus, and it's cold, and you get on the bus, and I get in there, and Jay's on there, because we're practically down the street from each other, and I'm saying, I went to see Kiss last night, and I said, you're not going to believe these guys. They're incredible. I said, it's nothing like you could ever imagine. And Jay believed me and all that, but there was a few kids that were going like, Starkey, you've never been to a Kiss, you've never been to any concert before, so what do you know? Of course, your first concert's you're gonna feel that way about your first rock concert because what you know.
Can I interject real quick? My first concert was in 1978. It was the Charlie Daniels Band. And if somebody wants to say that your first concert sets a tone, I'm calling bullshit right now because 4 years later, I saw Kiss on the Creatures tour, and that blew everything away. Because if I went by my first concert experience, Charlie Daniels is the man.
Well, and see, back in '74, you wore your band like you wore some sort of a badge, and
Like an NFL team.
Yes.
exactly, it was like he was. Except we didn't have our T-shirts made or anything like that. That would come later, and fortunately for me, Jay was a good guy, and he went along with me, and it just so happened that 3 weeks later, Kiss would be playing Indianapolis in a mixed bill called Christmas Jam at the Indianapolis Convention Center with like 6 or 7 other bands. There was like a band called Hydra, Quicksilver Messenger Service. Rush was supposed to have been there. They were on the marquee, but they didn't show.
Fuck
but
Rush.
The main feature, excuse me?
Fuck Rush.
Yeah, oh yeah, of course. I mean,
Thank
whatever.
you.
I mean, but I got to admit, I enjoyed the early Rush shows with Geddy and Alex. They were incredible. Before they went to that
Fair
space
and
rock
balanced
stuff,
journalism.
No. First of all,
right,
let's stop
now.
here. Let's stop here. Fair and balanced journalism has no place on this podcast. I'm gonna agree with Bill. The late 70s Rush stuff was amazing. Everything they did after, I want to say 81, was that Moving Pictures, was garbage. And that's where I'm gonna base my Rush hatred off of. When I hear Rush on the radio, it's radio free 5 minutes. I'd rather listen to wind pour through my ears than listen to Rush at any point in time.
All right. So my dad gets this wild hair, and he sees in the paper that Kiss is playing again. He's kind of daring my mom, and he said, Jane, he goes, you got to go to this rock concert. He goes, it's nothing like you think, and these guys are especially the guys to go see. And my mom says, all right, I'm game for it. So here's my second show, and this time my mom takes me and said, my dad and my brother goes with me, and my dad babysits my sister and takes her to an auto show or somewhere, driving around the cities of Indianapolis. And we go to this concert, and it starts at 5 p.m. So we're sitting there through all these shows, all these bands, and REO Speedwagon was the headliner. And, of course, REO had Riding the Storm Out, and they were like the Hoosier Native Son band. Everybody liked They Could Do No Wrong, got plenty of airplay and all that, and they got out there and they did fine and all that. And then it wasn't until almost after midnight when their set was done, and the guy yells, "Stay tuned for Kiss." And my mom was a little antsy because she'd said we'd sit through all these bands and she'd seen enough and heard enough and whatever. And of course, this wasn't her cup of tea either. And I kept begging her. I said, no, we need to stay for Kiss. This is why we came. This is why we came to see Kiss. So it wasn't like till 12:30 Sunday morning, Kiss comes on and Paul Stanley yells, "Hey, Indianapolis, better late than never." And they get out and just totally kick ass like they do. But the funny thing was, playing last, there was only so many of us that had stuck around for them, because after REO Speedwagon, what else is there? And anyway, who ever heard of an opening act playing last?
At that time, nobody.
Right. But they did. And trust me, the show was just as dynamic, just as incredible then it was in Evansville. So I'm coming back to Jay the next day on the bus, and I go, man, he goes, I said, Kiss, I got my second show, and it was incredible. And he said, really? And I said, yeah. And I said, the second time, man. I said, everything's different about it. I said, it's a very high energy show. I said, they're all over the place. I said, it's incredible. So, Jay starts doing cool stuff like preaching the gospel of Kiss. He's even bootlegging 8-track discs, or 8-track takes, of Kiss music to his friends. And he probably was the one that came up with the idea that said, let's call up the radio stations and see if they'll play Kiss, because Jay was big on the request line. Mm-hmm. I really wasn't, because I didn't listen that much to the radio as much as I did just playing my albums. So when we originally tried to call in and request Kiss stuff, of course we were rebuked numerous times.
Now this is in This is in 74, 75.
74, 75. Yeah, they said, well, we don't play Kiss and all this stuff. And so while this is all going on, we're starting to take some heat from our classmates, because the cutting comment was, well, Starkey, if they're so fucking great, why aren't they on the radio? And that hurt so bad to hear that, because there really wasn't any rebuttal that we could come up with, other than to take it. That was it. Well, we needed to get them on the radio, because I knew what I'd seen, and I knew that they were far better than anybody I had seen since then. And so, yeah, then after that, I'd seen a few other shows. I'd seen the Eagles and the Doobie Brothers, and they came to our Holman Center, and they put on good shows, but I told Jay, I said, and he was looking at some of the shows, I said, this can't compare to a Kiss show, man. I mean, no way.
Now I have to draw a comparison here to what I've always thought about the band, and I've seen them 44 times in my own life. That just goes back to '82. What you heard on the record did not translate to what they provided live. How hard was that to enunciate to your brethren in high school? And I think you were in high school at the time when this was happening.
Right. This was our.
How hard was that to tell your friends what you hear on the record is not exactly what you're hearing live?
It was almost futile. I mean, because like I said, Jay was providing the free copies of the music, and that helped some, but things really didn't work for us until about March, and that's when my father was in a terrible accident, and he had fell down the basement stairs, and he was in intensive care, and he was like in intensive care for like a couple of months. It was terrible, and I was in the hospital lounge, the lobby, and there just so happened to be an Indianapolis paper in the lounge. And I picked it up and going through the entertainment section, and by God, there was a Kiss concert in there. And this time, they were headlining. Well, I went crazy. I said, I got to call Jay. I said, I knew I was onto something. I said, now these guys are headlining. It says April 22nd or 23rd, 1975 at the Convention Center, see Kiss with special guest Rush. So Jay was able to help me round up like 3 carloads of our friends who had kind of showed an interest in the band but didn't really know what they were seeing. And we said, let's take a caravan and drive up to Indianapolis. And
you're in Terre Haute at the time.
Right.
Now,
so,
real quick, I don't mean to stop you. Explain to the listeners how far Terre Haute is from Indianapolis.
78 miles.
So 2-hour ride.
Pretty much, and tickets were $5, which was a pretty cool deal. And so we were able to take 3 carloads of guys, and we got up to the show, and Status Quo opened up the show, and they were an awesome English band from the '60s. That great, very underrated warm-up band. Rush came out, opened up with Anthem, and then went right into everything. They only had 2 albums out at that time.
Right.
And that was fine for me with the first one and then Fly By Night. And then Kiss came out, and it was just unbelievable. And Jay had convinced me he said, none of this standing in the seat shit this time. He goes, let's go to the stage. He goes, I want to be as close to the stage as possible. And he says, and I want to be by Simmons' stage. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, he's the craziest of any of them,
Wow.
I said, what's going to happen? Going to puke blood on us or something? So Jay convinced me. He said, we're going to stand, and we're going to be like 5 rows away. And back in those days with festival seating, it was pretty bizarre. I mean, you basically fought for your space, and you stayed there, and you stood, and the sound was just, I still say to this day, there must be some sort of limits on sound, because they were one of the loudest bands I ever heard back then. To this day, I still have not heard anything as loud.
I agree with you.
I don't know what it was, but that just intensified the effect. The fact that they were assaulting you that way and visually. So they came and they did the same, pretty much almost the same set that they did for Kiss Alive. And I'm not even sure if they played Rock and Roll All Night or not, because at that time, Dress to Kill had only been out a few weeks.
I would definitely say that maybe or maybe not it hadn't hit at that point in the time you're describing, because Rock and Roll All Night kind of bubbled later on.
Yeah.
Now, I think you've already answered the question I was going to ask next, but why Kiss? I mean, I know why for me, but why for you back in 74, 75? What made this band so dynamic that you decided to take on and carry the flag for such a band?
I felt that this was a band where all 4 guys had like an equal sharing in the band. Visually, vocally, musically. It was almost like a Beatles thing, or Beatles on steroids. They combined all the cool things that I liked about
Beatles on steroids. I love
what
that.
a great analogy.
That is a great analogy.
Well, I mean, it was like,
I'm going to quote you on that, sir. I am so going to quote you on that.
You can quote me, but I'm sure someone else would also come up with that quote as what I thought.
I
But see,
think
I was
that's
a
the
big,
first time I heard that one.
Really?
I was a big Alice Cooper fan, and to me, Kiss was like they just filled in all the blanks that were missing for the other bands. Like I liked Mott the Hoople and Bowie and the Glitter Band, but this was an American band. And plus, we were fascinated with the fact that this was an American band and they were from New York. And when you're from Indiana, you know, you kind of look at New York and L.A. in different ways. Kiss was just, yeah, of course, people say, well, that was the first band you saw. But I think everything had like a fatalistic kind of thing to it. I mean, that's just the way it was meant to be. And it was meant for Jay to follow, and we created a huge following. And so when we came back from Indianapolis after my third show, Jay's first, we had a following. We had like the disciples. And so then it wasn't really hard to just spread the word. Now, we were still up against the wall because people were still giving us shit about, well, they're so great, how come they're not on the radio? Well, one of Jay's friends ended up printing some homemade T-shirts copied off the first album, and we picked a certain day or two where we would say, well, we're going to wear our Kiss shirts this day. And there was a couple pictures taken, and one of them was in the bathroom of our high school. And well, we couldn't think of any other place to have a meeting.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like smoking in the boys' room because we were all like the geeks of the school.
So the
we related to
the first ever meeting of the Kiss Army,
was in a bathroom.
The leaders of the Kiss Army met in a high school bathroom.
Yeah,
I think it's quite appropriate.
That's that's grassroots, bro. I'm very proud to hear that.
Especially,
yeah, I mean, and to this day, I'm still on Facebook with a lot of those guys that are in that picture. And you know, we were still up against the wall because, you know, Aerosmith and, you know, Leonard Skinner were real popular back then, and they had also come to Terre Haute. Did not sell out the arena, but got enough to the point where they were getting tons of airplay that Kiss wasn't getting. And we were still going up against the radio personalities who just said, you know, well, eventually they told us that the program director didn't like the band. He thought they were, quote, New York fags.
Wow.
And, or another New York fag band, I guess, like the Dolls or something. And that's probably a typical Indiana Hoosier-like response to the, I don't know, whatever you think's going on in the East and West Coast. And we continued to call and write letters to the radio station. It was like what one writer called it Chinese water torture.
Wow.
We were going to try to get our way one way or the other.
So this isn't unlike the East Coast West Coast rap thing that happened in the 90s. This is a lot like, well, West Coast bands versus East Coast bands in the 70s for rock and roll.
Well, there was bias. I mean, the cool thing about radio in the 70s is, yeah, you could hear everything from Captain to Neil to Inagata DeVita on the same radio station sometimes. But there was a whole lot of
that was back when DJs had more control over
Thank
the
you,
music
Eddie,
they played.
for pointing that out.
And there was a lot of bias. There was a lot of bias. And,
So
and I'm not saying it's...
So if the DJ didn't like, say, Kiss or Alice Cooper or Led Zeppelin, they could decide not to play those particular artists.
Right, but usually in our case, what was holding us back with Kiss, I believe, was just total album sales. Because at that time, Alive had yet to be released. All we had were 3 albums.
And they weren't selling that great.
And they weren't selling that great. Cooper was selling, Aerosmith was selling, I'm sure Leonard Skinner was selling, and that was the thing that they had. But, you know, that's what we were up against.
So let me ask you a question. Going forward, you guys are on the grassroots, meeting in the bathroom, doing your thing. You decide to invent the Kiss Army. Now,
right.
there are stories abound for 40 years about how you guys took it upon yourselves, you and Jay Evans, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you and Jay Evans would pound the radio stations, play Kiss. They're giving you resistance. Finally, something happens. You find a DJ who has your interests at heart. We're going to play Kiss. Tell me what happens from there.
We were lucky that a new radio station had started up not too far from where the other one was located. And the guy's name was Ed Gansman, and he was very open to playing Kiss. And that helped. but at the time he had a newer station. They probably didn't have the ratings that the other station had. We got into him first, and then eventually we got into WVTS, which was our main goal. And the funny thing was that they would still try to play games with us. Like they would play Love Theme from Kiss, or they would play something and then not say that it was Kiss. And Jay would call up, or I would call up and complain and say, hey, you played it, but you didn't say who it was. So it was the same as not getting any airplay at all. Eventually, they asked for me to bring my records down to the station so they could copy some cuts, because they told me that the program director had destroyed their Kiss albums. So can you imagine me going to ask my mom to borrow the car so I could take my Kiss albums over to the radio station so they could copy them? My mom was thinking, like, what's the big deal about this? Why is this so important, you know?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that was the kind of stuff we would do. And, of course, I would have fun writing these letters. We would write these funny letters that says, you know, if you don't play Kiss, we'll blow up the radio station, and we would draw a picture of Gene blowing a big fireball or something.
Yeah.
Is this going into the Kiss Army letter of the day?
Exactly. And that's when Kiss Alive came out in September, 40 years, as a matter of fact, to roughly around this date.
Not far from this. Yes, it was just recently the anniversary.
Yes. And Kiss Alive helped us a lot, because I think then people started to get to listen to that and realize that, yeah, the shows were pretty good. And I don't think it was till maybe late September, and they weren't playing a lot of Kiss, if any, on WVTS. And the program director, who was really brilliant in regards to promotions and all that, he says, you know, Bill, he said, Kiss is coming November the 21st. He said, why don't you, you know, those stupid letters you used to write us all the time, why don't you write them again, and I'll read them for like 2 weeks up until the show, leading up to the show, and we'll call it the Kiss Army Letter of the Day, and I'll read it every day till like 5 o'clock in the evening. Now, the bad part about that is that Rich was he was Howard Stern before there was Howard Stern. I mean,
Wow.
he could do the trash talk radio and whatever he could get away with, and no matter what was in my Kiss Army Letter of the Day, Rich always had the last word, so he would put us down mercifully. I mean, he'd say, well, this proves that, you know, the IQ of the total Kiss Army is you could put on a matchstick. Or, and of course, our letters were brutal too. We would say, Kiss is bigger than the Beatles, or Kiss is bigger than anything. You can't, you know. I mean, that was our goal. Is it was going to be a Kiss world, whether they liked it or not.
Wow.
Right.
And that was our thing. So our letters got crazier, but unfortunately, Rich kept getting his licks in at the end. Well, one of the crazier things we used to do just for kicks, because we didn't have anything to do in Terre Haute, was Jay convinced some guys, or we both convinced some kids, some friends of ours. One of them was my younger brother, as a matter of fact, to paint up like the band, and we would take them through the local mall, and just to see what kind of a silly reaction we would get from people, you know.
Well.
And we didn't consider it promotion. We just did it something to do to kill time. And eventually, one night we drove by the radio station with these kids, and we had them go up to like the door and knock on the door. Well, one night we did it. The program director's wife was real excited, and she opened up the door and she said, Kiss heard about what you guys are doing, and they want to meet you.
Wow.
Well, I
That's
had found
awesome.
out that night that the concert had sold out, and at
Nice.
that time, the only other concert that had sold out in Terre Haute at that time was Elvis, and that was like in May of that year. So Aerosmith, Leonard Skinner, all these other bands, the Doobie Brothers, the Eagles, none of them sold out. Kiss did. So all of a sudden, I'm numb, because I'm like, I really didn't want. I wasn't intended to meet the band or anything like that. This was just something that was done on a lark. I mean, I didn't have a job. Jay had just gotten into his freshman year at college, so he had to kind of like scale back some of his Kiss stuff, because it was real important for him to get his education. This wasn't anything but just something that we were doing just on a lark.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where we stopped right there.
Now, this will lead me into my next question, which, if you are in any way, shape, or form connected to the Kiss Army in whatsoever form, you have heard about, and I throw this up with, as Mike likes to say, quotations, the fateful day around the radio station where the KISS Army has formed around the radio station to force them to play KISS. Bill, give us the real story.
Well, and I hear this quite often, and I understand people like to dig Gene about this, but I honestly think this is a sincere mistake, because the day the KISS came was a huge production. I mean, we had the U.S. Army meet them at the airport. A couple hundred fans met them at the airport as well. They had a caravan drive downtown, and to top it all off, KISS came into WBTS to play disc jockey, which was kind of ironic considered a year or so ago I couldn't even get their music on the radio station. So here's the band coming from the airport in limousines, and they drive all the way into the radio station. Well, the radio station's a ranch house way out in West Terre Haute, and kids were already tipped off that KISS was going to be there. So, yes, fans had surrounded the radio station because they were waiting to get a glimpse of the band. And back then, you didn't see KISS without makeup or whatever. I mean, it was unusual.
Right.
And, of course, the band came off the plane in makeup and all that. But when Gene drove into the radio station, he drove into the radio station that was surrounded by KISS fans, because he honestly, sincerely believed it. Because I ran into him in '92, and the first thing he asked me, after not speaking with me like for years, was he said, "Billy, get me a picture of kids surrounding the radio station." So he truly believed it.
And we'll get into that later. We'll get into that later on in the conversation. But I really, and I'm sure we both want to know, what was the real story behind that?
Well, that was what it was that KISS came to play disc jockey that day, and they came to the radio station, and the radio station was surrounded by fans, KISS fans, and what have you. And I think that was what stuck in their mind, because it's not something that they did a lot. And that's what, that's the real story. I mean, everything I've told you, with the band and how it happened, we never had to surround the radio station. Nobody was threatened. Nobody was tied up or
the good old
gagged,
days.
or
Yeah.
we didn't take over we didn't take over. And then I'd have people come up to me and say, "Well, I like Gene's story better." And I said, "Well, yeah, but I don't I don't want to have like a Brian Williams moment where I say something and somebody says, 'Well, Bill, I was there and it didn't happen that way.' So, and it ruined Brian Williams' career. I don't want to have to. There's a lot of people that should get as much credit behind this as I always get, and because of that, I owe it to them to tell them the truth.
I don't want to get you. I don't want to get you into too much trouble, but I've heard that story before. You may not have to drop the name, but I don't care about litigation. Was it Susan McGowan from Kistery?
Yeah, but Susan's a good person.
I
met.
She is. But
we met, and I as a matter of fact, she was the one we met at a KISS convention here, and I laughed and I said I was very flattered to be in Kistery 1, and I said, but the true story of the KISS Army didn't happen that way. And she said, I like Gene's story better. And I said, well,
I bought
fine.
KISS.
And listen to this.
Yep.
Rich Dickerson, my adversary, in the KISS Army, I told Rich that one day. I said, guess what they're saying about the KISS Army? And you know what Rich said? He laughed and he said, I love it. Let's run with it. I'm thinking, yeah, but it didn't happen like that. So even Rich Dickerson liked it.
Why promulgate a lie when you can produce the truth? You were the ground roots. You made it happen. If you say it's so, it's so.
People prefer the legend.
To some people, it sounds more sensationalistic when we did it that way. Everybody has a different theory. One guy said that he thought KISS liked it, the other story, because he thought it made them look better. I don't know about that. I mean, I think the way we did it sounds more realistic, and it was a gradual thing over several months.
Understood.
And I was very lucky. We were all very lucky. Everything had to happen at the right time. Me, Jay, Rich Dickerson, the disc jockeys, KISS Alive, all that had to fall into place for this to happen.
Now, when
did it just did.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And it just did. So I've never been upset over the fact that kids surrounded the radio station or whatever. Never bothered me at all, because I'm telling you, I truly believe that Gene sincerely believed it. And he gets a lot of crap about, oh, well, you know, it comes from Gene, it's fabricated, or it's overblown, or it's made up stuff. No, I think he truly believed it. And that's fine.
There's no offense to that particular point, but a lot of times you have to take what Gene Simmons says with a grain of salt and a whole lot of alcohol, because he really believes in what he's saying, even if it's half truth or no truth at all.
Well, there's a Gene Simmons you can get one-on-one, and then there's the Gene Simmons you're going to get if you're the media. And that's just the way it is. And the Gene Simmons you guys see on the media isn't the Gene Simmons I've known.
Which is going to lead me to my next question. Go ahead.
Sometimes it's gotten him in trouble, and that's neither here nor there. But, you know, that's just what it is. He looks at it in a different way. And then that's fine, because then that's what's helped keep the band alive.
Speak into the microphone, Ed. I want to hear what you have to say.
Gene Simmons is like an awesome promoter. Like every time I see him on TV, he's promoting the business of Kiss. So I think a lot of times that gets convoluted as being like full of yourself or
arrogant. Yeah,
right.
And you're right.
Great point.
This is his business. Kiss is his life.
Yes,
Kiss is a business, and that's fine. Like I said, but if you talk to him off the record, he's a real sweet person. I mean, it's nothing like you. I mean. But you're not going to see that Gene Simmons.
Unless you meet him.
You may not.
Unless you meet him. And I've only met him once in my entire life. And from the time I was very young, he was my hero. And the first time I met him, which was the only time I met him, he was an incredibly gracious human being, which leads me to my next question. When did the band catch wind of what you were doing, and how did they include you?
The band found out when the promoters... Like I said, when Rich Dickerson's wife met us at the door, when we had brought the unknown soldiers of the Kiss Army to VTS that night, NTM Limited, who was promoting the thing, was in contact with the Coin management, and they told the Coin that the concert had sold out. Well, Coin was very sharp about this stuff, and they said, well, promotion-wise, what were you doing differently that you didn't do for the Doobie Brothers, Eagles, and all these other bands that did not sell out home and center? Because probably at the most, those crowds were like 6,000 or so, and the Kiss had sold out 10,000 plus. Well, the NTM Limited people went back to the radio station and said, well, okay, what did you do promotion-wise? And they laughed and said, well, this crazy kid was calling himself the Kiss Army and was writing us these letters, and it's been going on for months. And they said, oh, Kiss what? And they said, we want to meet this guy. And so then VTS said, is it okay if we give them your phone number, Bill, and have them contact you? And I said, yeah, sure. I mean, I just had no idea what was going to happen. I mean, and then, oddly enough, on my birthday, November the 10th, I got a phone call from Alan Miller, who was, like, in my opinion, the number 2 guy at a Coin Management, and that started a long relationship between he and I in regards to promoting the upcoming Kiss show and eventually, you know, the Kiss Army.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, definitely.
So the official
we
Kiss...
were talking daily.
Wow.
I mean, it was funny. It was a collect call kind of situation, and they wanted Terre Haute to replicate what was done in Cadillac. Well, I wasn't aware of what had happened in Cadillac because back then rock and roll news was really at a slow pace. I mean,
and for those listeners who don't know what happened in Cadillac, Michigan, that was when a high school football team had pumped their team up using Kiss music, and they ended up winning a championship, and they invited Kiss into the town to do a parade, and the city leaders put on Kiss makeup, and it was just an event. And so that's what Bill's referring to right now.
Yeah, and their 40th anniversary is coming up real soon, too, and they're going to have a big celebration there, I believe, next month.
Where, in Cadillac?
Yes.
I can't wait to see that.
Yes, they're having. Unfortunately, we're not doing anything in Terre Haute, which I'm really kind of disappointed in. But I mean, I put a few feelers out there, and nothing's happening right now. So
it kind of discourages me because of the scope of what is known now as the Kiss Army. That the birthplace of said fan club is not being recognized 40 years after the fact.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
I know.
Nobody's
I know. I
figured
don't know
out how
what.
to
I
make
don't know
a
what to
ton
tell
of
you.
money on it.
It doesn't matter about the amount of money they make on it. It's just the recognition of
No,
what was done.
I agree with you. It's the backing that you need.
I
Yeah.
agree with that too.
If
I'm
they can't,
I'm not disappointed in the band. I'm disappointed in my hometown because I think more needs to be done, and it never has been. And I don't know why. I mean, unless there's just some apprehension about. I don't know. Unless I can understand, like in the '70s when they thought Kiss was a taboo kind of thing, Knights in Satan's service. But now, 40 years later, I mean, I don't know.
I love that
I don't know.
reference.
I've
Yeah.
had some people tell me that they've talked to people like city council members and all that, and I don't know.
Could you
Nothing-
imagine, Bill, real quick, USA Today, who did an article with you about a year ago, coming into Terre Haute, and I know you live in Speedway now,
Mhm.
coming into Terre Haute, having Bill Starkey there, 40 years later, trumpeting the inception of the Kiss Army and having some sort of, I don't want to say a parade, but some sort of recognition of what was done 40 years ago and how it's become this worldwide phenomenon now, bringing some notoriety to the town, and they're not backing it?
No.
That
Yeah,
that boggles my mind.
That is crazy.
I have theories on that, but that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, Eddie has theories on a lot of things, and I agree with him
No,
on this
well,
one. I agree
well,
with him
I
on
have
this
some
one.
theories
Real
too,
quick,
but they're more off the record stuff. I'm not gonna,
No, I'm just saying.
I don't
like,
know.
If the big three isn't involved, nobody wants to get behind it.
Fair.
You know, it's sad. Because and right now, like even the festival circuit is a very dirty word right now.
Yeah.
Because people go to them and they feel like they're being ripped off, and nobody will just do a legitimate.
I don't know.
event,
You give me a festival and I got 40 bands in front of me. I'm getting for my $20 a great day
It's
of
fine
music.
if you and I did it.
Yeah,
Correct.
You
If someone
better.
like
Yeah.
Clear Channel does it, you're gonna get raped.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, we're gonna move forward. So now, Bill, the band gets wind of it. You are brought in. The official, and I say that with quotation marks around it. The official Kiss Army gets started by Bill Coyne, and I believe it was Boutwell.
Yes, Boutwell Enterprises, Ron Boutwell.
Okay, so the official Kiss Army gets started. How much input do you have? And in a further question, not only just your input, how much are you compensated, if anything?
We originally, when Alan Miller contacted me, he put in writing that he wanted the Kiss Army to be run out of Terre Haute, and he felt that I should need to go out and get a post office box, and it was starting to look like that's probably what we were going to do. Eventually, though, I never met Bill Coyne until the night of the show, and Bill and I had a private discussion, and I don't know, Bill asked some sort of a strange question, like, what is it that I was looking for? What did I want out of this whole deal? Which I wasn't sure what he meant by that, because I was basing everything on what Miller had told me. And I was just under the assumption that, well, eventually things would happen, because, let's face it, they were contacting me daily. So eventually, like in December, the next month, Alan called me and he said, we want to fly to New York, and we want you to be a part of the celebration for Kiss's New Year's party. And so I was flown there, and I hung out with Jim Neff, and it was a great 3-day trip to New York. I'd never been to New York, never flown on a plane, never ridden a limousine. All this was really cool. It was, it's probably part of my, what do you want to say, my
Initiation, if you will?
initiation or part of my payback. And I did my first interview with David McGee, who was with the Rolling Stone, and that was kind of cool. And it was the Kiss pool party alone was amazing. If you can imagine seeing Kiss in the pool and stuff like that without the makeup and all that, and that was kind of different. And then I came back home to Terre Haute, and my mom got on me, and she says, you just can't just keep doing this Kiss stuff because you're not making any money. You need to go out and get a job. Either go to college or get a job. Well, at that time, my high school grades wouldn't get me to college, and because it just wouldn't, and along with the money factor. So I got a job working for Columbia House, and eventually, I think about March, I got a letter from Boutwell, and it was from a lady, I can't remember her name, was Doree Garber, I guess it was. And she was introducing herself, and she said that they would be running the KISS Army. Well, I was kind of shocked by that because like I said, I hadn't heard from them for like several months, so I didn't know what was going on. And she basically gave me to a lady by the name of Jennifer Baker, who went by the name of Sergeant Baker, and we would be on a letter campaign / phone call campaign where we would talk back and forth about KISS.
Did she deem herself Sergeant Baker, or did she earn that title?
Well, I really don't know how Boutwell did that kind of stuff. I knew at the time that Boutwell had handled other fan clubs like Elton John and Queen, and she and I talked at great length either through the phone or by letters, and she told me that she wasn't a KISS fan. Nobody there really was. To them, this was just a job. And this went on for like a couple years to the point where she never really saw her first KISS show till maybe the time they did the filming for Phantom of the Park, and they played out there at whatever the amusement park was out there.
Magic Mountain.
Magic Mountain, I think, was her first KISS show. And then she contacted me after that, and she says, wow, she said, I finally know now why you're such a intense KISS fan.
So 5 years after the fact, somebody gets on board.
Well, I mean, and that's the way it went. So I got to go to a few shows. It was pretty good. I mean, I could call Alan Miller, and I got shows to certain KISS shows where I could get there to travel. And I'll never forget the one night in St. Louis when Bill Aucoin gave me a copy of KISS Originals, and he gave me a big hug, and he says, look, you're famous. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool, I said, this is really neat. So all this time, no one really ever sat me down and said, this is the way it's going to be, and it's not going to be any different. Now, one of the positive things about it was that I could, not only was I in contact with Boutwell and Jennifer Baker, I could also put in and ask for KISS merchandise and get as much as I really wanted within reason, and no questions asked, free. But at that time, there wasn't a whole lot of KISS merch out there. I mean, other than a couple of belt buckles. And this is the way it went on for a long time. And that was good because what I would do is I would take KISS Army membership kits and I would give them to radio personalities around town and all that because I needed to keep my alliances and I wanted to, be in good graces with these people because, now we were all on good terms and you wanted to keep the avenue open and all that.
Hey, let me ask you, I mean, obviously you're dealing with old school. I mean, do you kind of feel like the media of nowadays pushes bands harder? I mean, because you guys had to do a lot of footwork back then, you know what I'm saying? And nowadays it's pretty much somebody can make a website, somebody can make a Facebook page and kind of push themselves that way. Do you guys especially since all the, the footwork that you guys actually did, do you guys kind of miss that? Or do you think it helps the industry? Do you think
I think there's pluses and minuses to it because in the old days, if you didn't see KISS or Alice Cooper or somebody like that,
you didn't know.
The intensity of seeing the first show was so cool that you couldn't go back home and watch the DVDs or any of that kind of stuff. And it was by word of mouth. You said, you have to go see this because it's not the same. So I think because of that, there was just an intensity that you don't have nowadays because you can go on YouTube and see anybody now.
Almost like an anticipation.
Yeah, almost an anticipation. And I hate to sound like an old man, but, what the music was in the 70s was just so much better than the way things are nowadays because nowadays, I mean, pretty much is rock and roll dead? I don't know. Gene made that comment a few months back, and to some degree, rock and roll probably is dead as far as the VMAs go and stuff like that. I mean,
right.
And I mean, I don't know. I don't want to sound like the old guy who doesn't want the football to land in his yard or anything like that, but it's not the same anymore. I mean, even bands like KISS that play similar type of music probably don't headline the big stadiums like they once did, and if they have to team up with other bands.
Right.
It's sad because sometimes it seems like they get ridiculed.
Agreed.
Right.
You know, and
Somewhat, but I mean, I just kind of laugh at music nowadays because it's just so odd. I mean,
It's
not.
So let me ask you something. Just a quick little side note on that to kind of bring you up to it. Now, say somebody approaches you, especially with the way today is, it's all rehashed. You know, people are redoing movies, people are redoing novels, people are doing everything.
Right.
Somebody comes up to you and says, dude, I got a great idea. I'm redoing Kiss. First of all, do you even like look at him? Or do you actually laugh at him, number one? And number two, if you do actually take him up on the idea, what would you tell him?
I would be open-minded to it because you just never know. I mean, I would be a little bit open-minded to it because
Kiss rocks.
if you're going to mimic somebody, if you're going to borrow some ideas, Kiss isn't a bad place to start.
Right, absolutely.
They were the marketing machine of the 70s. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, and I don't think they realized they were a marketing machine. I think they just did things, and other people were saying, you know, you ought to do this, you ought to do a comic book, you ought to do that, and they just went along with it. And then eventually they realized, hey, you know.
No, I don't disagree with you, but they at some point they did realize they were a marketing machine. They were more than a band. They were a brand, and they tried to carry that through a time where brands were not exactly embraced.
And they still aren't.
They never will be. They never will be. As a car, Bill, if you'll allow me to interrupt you, here we are 40 years later, and I'm still fighting people as a Kiss fan with 2 Kiss tattoos, and I took my 7-year-old to see Kiss, where people say, oh, Kiss, they're a gimmick. Well, yeah, they're a fucking gimmick. But you know what? They put on a great show every single time they go out on that stage. I don't care if it was 1974, 1984, 1994, or 2004, or 2014 when I took my daughter. They put on one of the best shows in rock and roll.
And I've always said, and this goes even far, that rock and roll, the music art form in itself is a gimmick. I mean, it's just 3 chords based on blues and a little bit of country. I mean, we're not talking Mozart or Beethoven here.
You got nobody disagreeing with you at this table.
When they say the gimmick thing, I'm not, you know, that doesn't offend me any because to me, you know, rock and roll, whether it be Elvis, Little Richard, or whatever, that's the way it was.
Say what you said, Loki. Say what you said again. Say what you said again.
So you got 3 people at this table who definitely do not disagree with that statement.
That one word that starts with the letter E. It's what?
Entertainment.
It's entertainment.
Yeah.
I said that.
Yeah, I mean,
Eddie, I'm sorry. Thank you. It's entertainment. It really is.
And the musicianship can go into it too, but sometimes there's that fine line between what is musicianship and what is entertainment.
Look, when I took my daughter to that show, and I don't mean to throw too much personal in here, we went and saw Kiss and Def Leppard in August of 2014. And my daughter loves both those bands. She's 7, but she loves both those bands. Now, Def Leppard is out there doing their thing, and we have our blanket on the lawn at this shed in Hartford, Connecticut. And she lays back on the blanket with her hands behind her head. And I said, Emma, what the hell are you doing? Def Leppard's out there rocking. And she says, you know what, Dad? Def Leppard's good, but I came to see Kiss. And that is a testament to what they do. Yes, the music is great. Yes, the music is memorable, but they put on a show. And that's the end result.
See, people are too hard on entertainment. They really are because there's a time.
Okay, let me stop you, please, Eddie. Let me stop you because I'm looking at the shirt you're wearing, and Bill, I'm gonna bring this out there. He's wearing a zombie T-shirt. I look at people who watch Walking Dead and say, this is fantastic entertainment, but they know it's all fake. But the same people who watch The Walking Dead will shit on professional wrestling and say, that's all fake. Well, so is The Walking Dead. What is the difference? What is the difference?
The difference was they actually, WWF did say that they were not a sports entertainment.
Thank you, Michael.
First.
Thank you.
They didn't say that. They actually told people that
in the beginning.
Was
the beginning.
Yes.
We're going 30 years ago. Go ahead, Bill. I'm sorry.
Let me go back to something too, though. And to some degree, I don't want you to put too much emphasis on the entertainment factor because we still, with the Kiss Army, it was always about the music.
Yes.
We like the songs. We like the songs. I don't need pyros or spiders or makeup or all that kind of stuff. One of my favorite Kiss shows was they were sitting on stools once playing an acoustic set during a Kiss convention, and I thought this is incredible.
I agree with you. The 95 Kiss convention, I caught the one in Boston, and they played stuff like all the way. They played stuff like Just a Boy. They played
Right.
stuff that they hadn't played ever live on stage.
right.
And there I am in the crowd as a Kiss fan going, oh my God, I never thought I'd hear these with the band on stage. They were
Right.
fantastic.
Actually, some
Yep.
of the performance of Kiss I liked. They didn't have makeup on.
Amen. And
You
I'm
know,
going to
so-
go to that. That's a later question I have for Bill.
Again, like I said, it's the entertainment thing though. It's like it's not just about the gimmick. Like you can be entertained.
It's
and
the
have a good
music,
time,
it's the
you know?
visual,
Yeah.
it's the
If-
yeah.
experience.
If you can make like one person happy, it's relevant. in my
Amen.
opinion.
Thank you,
So,
Eddie.
Right.
And Eddie is a big house music guy, so the fact that he's sitting here and taking all this in is big to me.
It's you know what though? It's here's the thing. Like I'm one of those people that I will never say that entertainment, music, movies, whatever has any obligation to be socially relevant or be the next Bob Dylan. Like you are not obligated to do that.
No,
Big respect,
No,
man.
you're
Big
not.
respect.
What you're obligated to do is to connect with your fans.
Amen.
That's it.
And,
That's
and
it.
Right.
honestly, if putting on the makeup and having a pyrotechnic show got asses in the seats,
Every
So
18
be
inches.
it.
Hallelujah.
Every 18 inches.
so be it.
So that leads me to my next question, Bill. What were some of the perks you got from Kiss from being the genesis of the Kiss Army?
Well, first and foremost was the fame that went with it. I mean, and that's something that still goes on even today. You know, I got a nice trip to New York, and I got some concert tickets. I got backstage privileges to some stuff that most fans today probably I don't even think they couldn't afford. I mean,
I'd
just-
kill. I'd
yeah,
kill
couldn't
for,
even fathom.
I'd
what
kill
it-
for some of the perks that you probably got.
Yeah, I mean, I have people like that have come up to me at Kiss Expos and say, you know, I would love to trade places with you and all that, and that's very complimentary, and that's cool. And
I would say
you know,
do it
it
yourself.
was a lot of fun. I mean, because I saw rock and roll from in a period or a time when it was prime for me, you know. So I was almost like the kid in Almost Famous. I mean, it was
I love that
it was
movie.
one of those.
Yeah.
It was one of those cool things. So I mean, as far as the perks go about that, you know, that's you know, it's kind of hard to put into words. I mean, was there a lot of disappointment involved? Well, yeah, there was some when I finally came to the realization that I wasn't going to run the Kiss Army, and that I would eventually have to just go to work like any other person, because I was insane about the band. I was probably would have needed counseling. I would have probably killed for the band, and that was from the early time on. And that's nothing I would apologize for. That's just the effect they had on me. And then once you met them as people, Gene and Paul especially, you know, that they could get you to, you know, you just found out that they were special people.
See, I would love to introduce you to some of the people I know, so you can give them lessons on what a real street team is. Because that's the impression I'm getting, is you have figured out like everything that goes into making a perfect street team.
Yes, absolutely.
Exactly.
That street team, that what you just brought up, the street team, and I was a leader of a street team for a band. It's very important.
Well, I mean, you know, there was other lessons I learned from Gene and Paul. I mean, one of the funnier things is the reputation that rock and rollers had in the 70s, and Gene and Paul were straight guys.
Satan?
And that influenced me a lot too, because to this day I don't drink, I don't smoke. You know, of course you don't do drugs. But when I was around them and I saw all the influences and all that stuff, and I noticed that these were guys that always went on stage, you know, with all their brains and everything else, and put on a good performance. I was impressed. And then later on, like from 2000 and on, what impressed me the most about the band to this day is the work ethic. The fact that they are devoted and go on stage and do everything with the utmost, with the idea that they're going to give 100%. And it's that work ethic. That's why they're still. They really don't need to
Exactly, yeah.
perform anymore.
Oh,
They
without
don't
question.
do any of that stuff.
I see
But
too.
they
I
do it.
see too many bands now that go out there and just sit on stools or just stand in
Yeah.
one place that just say, "Oh, you're here to hear the hit." Well, at the end of the day, you need to give me a show because I'm not paying my hard-earned money to see you sit on a stool.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
want to see a show. And my girlfriend and I just went and saw Motley Crue about a month ago, and they put on a show. And these are late 50s human beings that are still running around and doing this, with the exception of Mick Mars, who has medical issues. They're still
Right.
putting on a
Who's
show.
also from Terre Haute.
Oh, did you see the show?
No, but Mike is from Mars is from Terre Haute.
Is he really?
Yeah.
I didn't know
check
that.
it out.
Wow.
Yeah,
Here's-
that's your Terre Haute fact for the day.
That's your fact for the day.
There it
All right,
is.
guys, we're going to be right back with Mr. Bill Starkey. All right, guys, I hope you guys really enjoyed that part one. And like I said, we left you with a nice little cliffhanger there of his perks and benefits, if you will.
Absolutely. I wish I could have been there.
As a matter of fact, if you guys want to have a little fun with this week, if put yourself in his shoes, and if you could pick one perk that you would get from Kiss themselves, what would it be?
And if you're not a Kiss fan, I'll just
All
expand
right.
on what you're saying. Say your favorite band
Yeah.
is, I don't know.
Say it's Mark Slaughter.
Sure.
For Kira Gets out there.
Yes. Props to you, Kira. Yeah, if you're the fan club president of, say, the Slaughter fan club, the Queensryche fan club, the Kanye West fan club, we hear you, Eddie. We know you're out there. What kind of perk would you like from them?
Exactly.
And they seek you out.
Right.
That was the beauty of that whole
That's
story.
exactly it. Yeah, exactly. And then, I mean, especially like he said, you turn around and you have the actual members of KISS asking your point of view or what you thought about that or this, that, and the other thing. So, I mean, that's, like I said, he was more than willing to give out the information.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I hope you guys really enjoyed part one.
Hour one was fun, but hour two is
hour
going to open your eyes, really.
I think hour two, the best part about the next episode is we each had questions where he had to stop and think about it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's not like they can, and he said it, I think he said it either in the phone call or in the interview. Can't remember which one. The phone call with me in the days prior, he says,
Right.
I told him, I says, I don't want to get you in a situation where there's possible litigation where Kiss is going to come down on you and say, well, we heard you said this. And he said, it's so long after the fact that some of these stories have been told. Some of these stories have never been told. I'm not in fear of it. What can they do? I'm speaking my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm an American. And
America.
to me, I was like, wow, he's got it. He's got his priorities straight. He's got his head on straight, and he told the story. It was fantastic. I loved it. I loved part two even more.
I agree. I definitely agree. Like I said, I think it was like we really did need to break down part one into a point where, like we said, where you really had to get to know him and really experience where he was coming from. But like, I mean, one of the biggest things that I want to, especially a lot of our younger listeners, I want them to understand the leg work that he did. You guys got to understand, like, there wasn't any of the technology that was going on back then. When he made flyers, he literally drew flyers and then copied them by hand.
Calling radio stations.
Right, exactly. And actually going to the radio stations or going and traveling all this way to make sure that he gets there. You know what I'm saying? All the things that he did to make this happen, just in that alone is respectable.
It goes back to a lot of things that we say in do it yourself. You do the legwork, you do the work, you get rewarded.
Right.
But at the same time, in 1975, you're absolutely right. There was no internet. There wasn't a huge web of, even tape traders. Tape trading came in more in the 80s. But there wasn't a network where he could reach out to other fellow Kiss fans. He did this on his own.
Right.
The word got out, and they came to him. To me, that's the best thing about it.
That is.
They came to him.
That is the coolest
So
fucking part.
Mike gave you a little bit of something to think about and chime in on, and I want to give you all a little something to think about. Is there anything you've ever done from the ground up that you're proud of? I mean, I know this. This is what I'm proud of. We've done this from the ground up. We talked about it a few 140 episodes ago. I don't know how many. When I became pen pals with Eric Carr before he passed away. That's from the ground up. I wrote a letter, never expected a response. It turned into a 4-year pen pal relationship with a fucking superstar.
Yeah, that's cool.
Amazing.
Shit, man. That's cool fucking shit.
So if you've got anything out there that you've done from the ground up, you're superiorly proud of, in the vein of celebrity, please let us know.
Absolutely. And I do have another, like I said, we're going to have segments, different segments. The newest one, of course, is going to be a game review for me.
Ooh.
Yes. Still working on the title.
Okay.
So what I'm calling it right now is Loki's launch.
Okay.
Meaning, obviously the launch of a new video game.
Correct.
And this week, I have had the pleasure, and as you know, I'm a big Warhammer buff. I have all my painted miniatures and shit like that.
Absolutely.
Well, one of the things that they used to have was called Blood Bowl, and it's a cross between football and Warhammer.
Okay.
So there's orcs, there's goblins, there's all these things. So I picked up a copy of Blood Bowl 2 for Xbox One. It is also out for PlayStation 4. So this game is everything you would expect it to be. It's a turn-based, like a board game on the video game screen, with the in-between cutscenes of, say, your guy beating the crap out of the other guy.
We've mentioned our age about 100,000 times on this show, but I got to tell you, that reminds me of the second generation of Atari, which I think was the Atari 5200, where they had Stratego on a video game.
Right.
But they didn't have cutscenes. You played the board game on the TV.
Exactly. And this is the same idea. It is essentially the board game. It is a very fine rendition of the board game. They do a great job. There's eight races to start with. You got the orcs, you got the high elves, the wood elves, you got Bretonians, you got the Empire, you got the Skaven, which are the little rat guys.
Okay.
Those guys are really cool to watch. And I think there's the undead, and then I already said the dwarfs.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a really, really if you're into that type of game, if you're into that type of strategy, let me be. It is a football game, but it's not necessarily offense versus defense. There is one ball, the end zone's over here and the end zone's over there, and that's what you now imagine each one of you is trying to get that ball into the end zone.
It sounds to me like a cross between Mortal Kombat and NFL Blitz.
There you go.
Wow.
But you do have to be strategy because, like I said, it's turn-based. It's like a board game.
Okay.
So, I mean, I will have to give this a 7.3, and I am a fanboy. I am a fanboy of all things Warhammer.
Okay.
They did a great job as far as, like, some of the cutscenes are hysterical.
You say the word fanboy, and it's the fans of something are sometimes the most honest.
Well, you got to also remember, like, this is the way I look at it. When somebody makes a game or when somebody makes a movie or something, they don't do it for the fanboys.
Right.
They do it to bring new people in. They
fanboys
know
will pick it apart.
Exactly.
Right.
But they also know the fanboys are going to buy it regardless, just because of the name that you throw on it. You know what I'm saying? It could be, like I said, you could wrap a pile of crap and throw Halo on it, and I'm going to buy it just because it's got the stupid Halo, logo on it.
I'm somewhat the same way, and it goes right back to our guest this week and next week is Bill Starkey. I'm the same way. You put Kiss on a recording, I'm going to try it out. But I'm going to be honest when I'm done with it.
Right.
Yes, I'm going to buy it.
Right, exactly.
I've made that mistake before, buying a Kiss record sight unseen when it comes out and being like, wow, this is the worst piece of garbage.
Oh, this is
1987,
really crap.
Crazy Nights. Perfect example. And Nat Peterson, who we had on in the wrestling episode, is also a huge Kiss fan.
Mm-hmm.
He is this of the same mindset. It's like, how could they even press this? This is garbage.
As a matter of fact, our boy Bill, same thing. The 80s Kiss, he wasn't
right.
He wasn't very fond of.
Let's not spoil part two.
But no, that was like
I
said.
You were here. We had a discussion on that. There were some really shining moments, and the rest of it could have been left behind. Yep. You could have taken, and I heard this on another Kiss podcast. I don't think I said it to Bill. You could have taken the 80s was Music from the Elder, Lick It Up, Animalize. I'm showing how geeky I am about Kiss right now. I'm naming these 80s albums off. The Elder, Creatures of the Night, Lick It Up, Animalize, Asylum, Crazy Nights, and Hot in the Shade. So 7 records in the 80s.
Yeah. You
could have taken 2 songs off of each record that are stellar, put it on one record, had it be your shining moment of the 80s, and taken all 30-plus songs that were left over and dumped them.
Yes.
They were terrible.
Yes.
So, but as a fan, you have a certain expectation, and when it fails, you're looking at yourself and you're like, why? Why am I doing this? Al Pacino makes a slew of great movies, then he comes out with a clunker, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
Hey,
could have just stayed at home.
Exactly. There's a few actors like that, unfortunately.
Musical acts, actors, sports teams.
It happens, Sometimes you just pick up something you think is going to be a good idea, and it's the worst idea you ever fucking had.
Let me throw this out here to you. We got Starkey. We have the Bill Starkey Part 2 next week.
Yes.
We have my On the Road from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Which is going to be all things NASCAR.
Oh.
So all you NASCAR fans, get up for this one. This is going to be a special treat for you.
I will be doing this.
I'm going to be bringing back some old school NASCAR because that's when I watched.
Because little surprise for you guys is before I do this interview, before I do what I do on this show, I'm going to the NASCAR Hall of Fame the day before.
Yes.
I'm also going to the formerly Busch, I think it's the Xfinity Series now, race the night before.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be A, hungover, B, probably not going to be able to hear very well, so I'm going to bring my earbuds so I can hear Loki when he talks to me. It's going to be a lot of information. I got pit passes, so I'm going to try to talk to as many people as I can, write stuff down, get opinions. It's going to be all-encompassing. However, we should briefly, the week after, revisit our MLB picks. And I know you have it archived, and I think iTunes dropped it for some reason.
Yeah.
But season's ending, folks. We're coming down to the wire, and we want to see how we did. I want to see how we did.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I think we were pretty damn good, except for fucking East.
Except for Boston.
Except for the East, man. I mean, we pretty much.
Okay, mark this date down on your calendars, kids. Tomorrow's, when you hear this, it's September 26th.
Actually, we weren't too far off. I mean, what the Yankees are what, second?
Second with a game and a half.
Right, and we actually had flip flop. We had the Red Sox where Boston, or we had Red Sox where Yankees were.
I had Red Sox winning the World fucking Series.
Yeah, no, see, I didn't have them winning the World Series.
I had them beating San Francisco, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to go back and re-listen on Podomatic, where you can still get all of our episodes.
No, I think that's a good idea, definitely.
Okay, so without further ado, if you want to save 15% or more on car insurance, or if you want to hear Loki's Top 10.
It's the final countdown.
That's what they do.
Still love this fucking song.
Save 15% or more.
3, that's my limit. 3.
Dos, tres, cuatro.
So I put it up on the Facebook page for those that are listening on Saturday or any other day. I was waiting all week to hear what you were going to do this week.
I was.
Don't let me down.
No. This is going to be funny.
All right.
This is going to be.
I'm glad.
I apologize in advance, Bill.
I'm glad the midget left the room.
Me too.
Oh, you're apologizing to. Oh no, he's never going to give us another minute of talk time ever. Bill, you can still talk to me, dude.
This has nothing to do with Kiss, except for the fact that each one of these groups of people, Kiss and this group, wear lots of makeup.
Okay,
there you go.
You hear that pregnant pause? That was me thinking. All I can
Top
think of.
10
Uh-oh.
ridiculous porn star names. and I will give you whether it was a male or a female after I name them off. Okay.
Oh God.
And I threw him. All right. There actually was a guy named Bendover, by the way. I didn't want to throw him in there. It's just too fucking
easy.
Kids,
I just got through telling Loki before we went on that I went a week without beer. And just to hear this, I have to crack one. I know I'm going to need to be medicated.
So my honorable mention goes to Mr. Buster Hyman.
Sounds like a lawyer.
Doesn't it, man? So, all right. So this just goes to let you guys know where this is going to
Have
be
you been
going.
injured in an accident? Call Buster Hyman and good.
Hyman and how? All right. Number 10, Miss Justine Bieber.
Oh my God. She's got to be recent.
I think a lot of these. Well, no. There's. I'll tell you the two that I know that aren't.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, number 1 I know isn't in number 4.
Okay. Don't ruin it.
I know. Number 9, Mr. Lance Thruster.
Lance
Thruster. You could just.
These sound like bad names you would check into a hotel with.
That's why
nobody wants to know you were there.
Ridiculous names.
Can I help you, sir?
Ridiculous.
I'm Buster Hyman. This is Lance Thruster.
Okay, and of course,
God.
Miss, and she was Oriental,
Okay.
Fanny Depp. I think she was trying to do the Johnny because they don't do the, but I mean, they
But
should
an
have
A,
spelled it.
if I'm not mistaken, an A in the
Oh,
Oriental
you're
world is
right.
like an
Is
O.
O.
she's
So it's
Fanny
Fanny Depp. You're right. Oh, good call. Good call. Good thing I threw her in there, but
I'm
she
glad
still
you
made
did.
number 8.
Glad I threw her in there.
You like that?
Wow. This is the kind of quality entertainment you get for us for free. Now
free.
leave a
Come
fucking
on.
review.
Come
Come on.
on. All right, number 7, and this guy is white, which makes it even better.
Oh, God.
Mr. Robin Hood. Now, couldn't you just see him being from Ebonics, right? No, this guy is like Malcafor for he is white,
Okay,
dude.
stop. I gotta know now. I don't even want to get to number 1. How did you do this research?
I actually looked up ridiculous porn star
Okay,
names.
no, that's fair.
And they
'Cause
gave me like 50 of them.
I just, you know,
From
part
there.
of me was afraid to ask that question because you're gonna say, "Oh, I've got a Foot Locker upstairs with hundreds." And
No.
Oh, God.
Actually, it did get me going originally because what's her name? Tia Carrera, the lookalike, was recently in the news. The porn star Tia Carrera. It's TD Carrera or something like that. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm familiar.
She
yeah,
looks
yeah.
just like her, but she's got huge knocks. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? And that made me think about it, and I was like, man, I'd like to do a top 10 list of that. And then I started looking into the names, and
Okay.
some of them were just ridiculous. Like I
Yup.
said, number 6. This goes out to my Star Wars fans, Mr. Luke Thightwalker.
Oh my Lord.
Number 5 goes to Miss Vanna.
You might want to take a deep breath first. There you go.
Vaginally holy.
Whoa,
Oh my God.
God. Yeah.
But Vidanaline Holy. It's supposed to be like Angelina Jolie,
Okay.
but it's
Vagelina Jolie.
Vagelina Holy.
Oh,
there
wow.
it is. There
Oh,
it
my
is. I
God.
couldn't spit that freaking word
Okay,
out.
and that's your number 4?
That's 5.
5? Oh,
That's
she
number-
should have been lower. She should have been like 9.
Well, you got you'll see.
Okay.
This is one of the ones that's old
because
school.
it's ridiculous. So
Yeah.
that's why she's higher. Never mind.
Yes. Number 4, and this is one of the guys I think is old school, and
Okay.
I like this one. I really do. He was almost my number 1. I fought between him and number 1 for a little bit.
Yep.
John Cusack.
Let me guess. He was in Lay Anything.
Probably. Yep.
Forrest Hump.
Number 3, Miss Teen Laquifa.
Oh my God. Your parents are all
Yes.
proud. All
Yes,
of you.
you are.
All of you. They're
Number
proud.
2, I don't know how she gets any work, especially when it comes to oral.
Mhm.
Miss Ginger Vitus.
Oh my God.
Are you serious?
You know, that's a great name for a character in a video game, but for
Exactly.
I'm done. I don't even want to go to number 1. I say we
Number 1.
cut the show now.
Oh, no.
Oh, right. Yeah, I should have played that music.
That is for Ginger Vitus.
Instead of hitting the drum roll, I hit Dracula. And you know what? Ginger Vitus, you earned that.
Earned that one.
All right, so.
So the number 1 top 10 ridiculous porn star name that I believe, Mr. Rocky Balboner.
Oh my God. Hey, Adrian, I'm gonna violate. I'm gonna violate you.
goes the Viagra, you know what I'm saying? And it's just not going down.
Yeah,
It's all over the place. Yeah, I'm gonna beat you with this thing.
It's not as hard you get hit. It's how many times I hit it and keep coming back.
And the lightning and the thunder. But guys,
You gotta give me a second.
I told you. See, John Cusack and Rocky Balboner were,
Oh,
it was one of those closer men, but
Killing
I had to.
me.
I had to do it, man.
All right.
All right. So because this is everything Kiss, we usually go back and forth for the outros. But because this is Everything Kiss, the honor shall go on to my partner Jabroni for the next 2 episodes.
Wow.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you know that I appreciate that.
That makes
I
sense,
won't
you
be
know.
here for the 10th, so you'll be all over it. I'll hear Kanye.
No.
If you love me, I won't
That
hear
ain't,
Kanye.
that ain't happening. Kanye is not making. The only time Kanye ever gets recognition on our show is when Focus is here and mention his name, and that's
a
it,
good point.
people.
Guys, thank you for listening.
That's
Hope
it.
you enjoyed part 1, part 2.
Did
next
somebody
week.
say steak?
George Bush does not care about white people. Hope you enjoyed part 1. Part 2 is next week. Leave those reviews. We got a crystal. Tell me the name of it. I always call
Crystal
it
Skull Vodka.
Crystal Skull.
It
Vodka.
is literally crystal. It's because
That's
the
the name of
bottle is.
Why do I
want to
say Crystal Head? It's not Crystal Head.
No, it's. I think Crystal Head is. I think maybe that is a vodka too, but it's Crystal Skull because the skull
yeah,
is
I've seen
actually
the bottle, yep.
vodka's actually in the shape of a skull.
Am I wrong in thinking? I could have sworn I thought Dan Aykroyd was a part of.
He is.
Is he really?
It is his
See,
vodka.
Guys,
It
you
is
want,
his
you want some
vodka.
Dan Aykroyd vodka?
It is his vodka. yes.
Autographed. I'm getting the legwork done. We have 2 out of 4 that are ready.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is leave those reviews. We pick one. You get a fine bottle of Crystal Skull vodka. Dan
Autographed.
Aykroyd's on vodka.
By
Autographed.
every person on the show so far.
Not that it means anything, but including us.
Yeah, no, that means everything.
Well, I would like to think so. And also leave on the page in a private message. See, details are everything. A private message. Who's going to win the Super Bowl? Brand new, free, your size, your player, availability in question. Your team. Let's just put it that way. Your team. If you're a Dallas fan and you pick the Seahawks to win the Super Bowl, you get a Dallas jersey for free.
Yeah.
A $200 jersey for free.
You guys can get a Romo jersey, even though it might not be as strong in the shoulders as other
I think
jerseys.
it's got a crack in the collarbone if I
Yeah.
saw the ad correctly.
Yeah.
Guys, we're giving shit away for free. All you have to do is your end of the work.
Yep. Review us. Love us. You know you want to.
And to end out week 1 of Bill Starkey, one of my favorite Kiss songs, I Stole Your Love.